Well, anyway, so Peter, we met at Netroots Nation a couple of weeks ago, and while we were there, I interviewed you about an amazing, amazing interview that you did, an amazing story about the NSA, and one of your is actually my favorite interview of the entire conference, and I'm really, really happy that you're coming on the show to redo it. It was actually one of the interviews that was, of course, stolen by the thieves in San Francisco. The vagabonds, I guess, took it. But the interview we did was all about NSA official Russell Tice, who is one of the previous NSA whistleblowers. And once people hear it, their jaws are going to drop. So please just tell us what happened when you interviewed former NSA official Russell Tice.
Russell Tice surprised me in this interview, Matt. I had spoken with him, interviewed him twice before, and he was clearly angry. He was angry that the response to the disclosures of Ed Snowden via Glenn Greenwald and the Washington Post were being spun up by people from James Clapper to the President of the United States. And when he heard the president in San Jose the week before Netroots say, "Nobody's listening to your phone calls," Russ Tice got very upset. And so the whole exchange where he unloaded and disclosed to me that when he was at the NSA, and he was very explicit, in 2004, he received the paperwork ordering wiretaps on a Senate candidate from Illinois named Barack Obama. And Russ Tice is revealing this because he is bent on exposing the domestic abuses of the NSA. And just to be clear, Russ Tice is not willing to talk about the foreign ops of the NSA. He considers those to be a legitimate part of the agency's mission as he knew it when he worked there, and he's not willing to compromise that in any way. But the unconstitutional and unlawful surveillance of Americans in the United States, so-called U.S. persons, really enrages Russ Tice. And so I read him a quote from an unnamed FISA court judge, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, that was published by the New York Times recently and was based on an effort by Yahoo back in 2008 to resist an order from the NSA. And Yahoo was asserting the Fourth Amendment rights of its users, people like me. And the judge, who remains unknown, he or she, dismissed the Fourth Amendment concerns raised by Yahoo, saying, despite the parade of horribles presented by the plaintiff in this case, we find that there is no harm from the surveillance programs conducted in the United States by the NSA. And the judge went on to write that there have been no known abuses of this wiretapping program. And it was that line about no known abuses that really pushed Russ Tice over the edge. He said, Peter, there have been abuses. He said the NSA is a rogue agency. He said General Keith Alexander, who not only runs the NSA, but also is in charge of the Pentagon's Cyber Command, has become a man who could blackmail our elected officials because he is sitting atop all of the dirt collected on our elected officials by the NSA. And I compared him to J. Edgar Hoover. And Tice also compared this to the Stasi in East Germany. And so I invite people to listen to the interview. Go to peterbcollins.com and scroll down on the homepage in the center there, and you'll find our blockbuster interview with Russell Tice. But what he exposes is, to me, far more damaging than what we've heard so far attributed to the leaks of Ed Snowden. Because he went on to say that he personally handled the wiretapping of a guy named Judge Sam Alito at the time he was appointed to the United States Supreme Court. Tice went on to say that at some time or another, all members of the Supreme Court have been wiretapped. He then named members of Congress, including Dianne Feinstein, the Senate chair of the Intelligence Committee. And he told a little story. Circa 2005, he was a guest on Larry King Live, the suspenders and glasses show on CNN. And he said he sat there on the set with Senator Orrin Hatch and Senator Feinstein. And it was all he could do to prevent himself from blurting out, "Don't you know that you have been under surveillance?" And so, if this is true, and I have no reason whatsoever to doubt Russell Tice, then many of our elected leaders are at least subject to blackmail, subject to being compromised by an intercepted phone call, by a videotape, by an email, by something that the government has collected on them. Now, while this is, a very evil specter to contemplate, I also argue that this could be the way that we could actually end this police state. Because Dianne Feinstein is readily willing to agree to have the NSA wiretap me or you, Matt, or any ordinary American. But I have a hard time believing that Dianne Feinstein is comfortable with the idea that the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee is being spied on by the agency that she is charged with oversight of. And so this could be the proverbial straw that shatters this camel's back. And I am hopeful that the ongoing disclosures that we're told to expect from the Snowden pipeline and the anger of our European allies that has surfaced over the PRISM program, that these will coalesce to empower elected officials who have been afraid, whether they were blackmailed or not, afraid to challenge the power of the security state. This could be the opportunity to blow that open. And there are 26 senators, including 4 Republicans, who signed a letter last week sent to James Clapper, the National Intelligence Czar, demanding answers about the legal underpinnings of these collection programs on American citizens. And so I invite your listeners to keep the pressure on. Try to get other senators to sign on to that letter. Call for a new church committee investigation, like the one we had in the 1970s, to expose this unconstitutional behavior and return us to constitutional rule. There's a great opportunity here to change the status quo.
I am talking to Peter B. Collins, host of the Peter B. Collins Show, which you can find at peterbcollins.com. And again, the interview with NSA official Russell Tice is on that site. We will link to it on our site, which again is matthewf.net, but you can find it directly at peterbcollins.com. I want to go over a couple of those points again, just to make sure everybody that this is sinking in. So we have a former NSA official, Russell Tice, on Peter's show, who is angry about the lack of people getting upset about the revelations of Edward Snowden and The Guardian and Glenn Greenwald. On his show, he said that he has personally oversaw the wiretap of Senator Barack Obama in 2004. This is insane. And again, something that's driving me nuts. Peter, we had this conversation 2 weeks ago at Netroots Nation. How is this not front page news? That is the one question I wanted to ask you, because this is insane. This literally should be shaking the very halls of power. This revelation. How has this not blown up?
I am surprised as well.
Yeah.
But, a couple of things. First of all, I want to share credit for this interview with my colleague Sibel Edmonds. She was fired from the FBI herself as a whistleblower back in 2002. She's a very courageous woman, and she formed the National Security Whistleblowers Coalition, and Russ Tice joined that group after he left the NSA. So I do want to give her appropriate credit for this important interview. The other piece is that Russ Tice explained to me that he had been invited on a number of national television shows, and let me name names. Brian Ross at ABC Television, Lawrence O'Donnell at MSNBC, one of the other MSNBC shows, John Fugelsang's show on Current TV. And in every case, he said that the interviews were abruptly canceled, often after he had told a producer that he was willing to tell the television audiences what he told me and Sibel. And so he feels that he's being blacked out, and that the corporate media is basically trying to straddle the news value of Snowden's revelations with a kind of allegiance to the government and, in some cases, the Obama administration. So that explains, to some extent, why this, which, as I said, I think is more damaging than what Snowden has disclosed to date, why the media has not picked up on this is beyond me. And at Netroots Nation, I shared the information from Russ Tice with Senator Merkley from Oregon, who's been a real leader on trying to restore some sensibility and constitutionality to the government's operations in the spy category, and also an outstanding progressive congressman from Minnesota, Keith Ellison. Both of them, their eyebrows went as far up as they could when I explained what Russ Tice had said. And to be fair to them, they had to take my word for it. Both of them took down the information to listen to the interview, and I'm going to be following up with them in the next week or two, because I asked each of them if they'd be willing to meet with Russ Tice and hear his disclosures personally. And both Ellison and Merkley said probably, but, you know, they were, I think, appropriately cautious. These are difficult issues for our elected leaders to deal with. But the other thing that I found was at Netroots Nation, I tried to get a direct answer to the question, did James Clapper lie under oath when he told Senator Wyden from Oregon that the NSA is not collecting millions of records on Americans? And it was amazing because most Democrats even are unwilling to call a lie when it's delivered by the president's top spook. The exception was Keith Ellison, who flatly said that it ain't true, and we have a 3-letter word for that.